I'm 87 years old, and there's something I still don't understand about my own life. How I stayed away from my family for 36 years, without anyone ever asking me to. Nothing dramatic happened, no fight, no moment where everything broke. If you had seen us from the outside, you wouldn't have noticed anything wrong. That's what makes it harder to explain, because when something ends quietly, you don't even realize it has ended. You just stop returning, and that's what I did. I stopped returning, not because they pushed me away, because I believed something about them that I never questioned. It started with a thought, a small one, the kind that doesn't feel important when it first appears. I didn't even notice when it began, just a moment, a conversation, something someone said that stayed a little longer than it should have, and then it formed into a sentence. If they ever find out, everything will change. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't check if it was true. I just held on to it. At first, it felt like awareness, like I was being careful, like I understood something others didn't. But it wasn't awareness. It was assumption, and assumptions feel real when you repeat them long enough. I started thinking about it more often, not constantly, just in quiet moments, before sleeping, while sitting alone, the kind of moments where your mind has space to move, and every time it went in the same direction. They won't understand. They will see me differently. They might not accept me. None of these things had happened. No one had said anything. No one had rejected me. But in my mind, it had already played out. That's the strange part. Your mind doesn't need reality to create an outcome. It just needs a story. And once the story feels complete, you start acting as if it already happened. I didn't argue with anyone. I didn't explain anything. I didn't even give them a chance to respond. I just started stepping back. A little less conversation, a little more distance, a little more silence. At first it felt temporary, like I just needed time. Time to think, time to avoid something I believed was coming. But what was coming never existed. That's what I understand now. Back then, it felt real enough to act on. I remember the moment it turned into a decision, not a big one, not something I announced, just something I accepted quietly. I was sitting alone, thinking about the same thing again, repeating the same sentences. If they find out, if everything changes, and then a new thought came, clear, simple, stay away. It didn't feel like fear, it felt like control, like I was choosing my outcome, like I was preventing something worse, but I wasn't preventing anything. I was avoiding something that hadn't even happened, and that avoidance became my life. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and every time I thought about going back, the same thought returned. It's better this way. That's how beliefs grow. They don't force you. They convince you, slowly, quietly, until your decisions start feeling logical, even when they're built on something untested. I stopped visiting, stopped calling, stopped being present, not all at once, gradually, so slowly that it didn't feel like loss. It felt like adjustment. And when something feels like adjustment, you don't question it, you accept it. I told myself I was protecting something, myself, my place in their eyes, the version of me they knew, but I wasn't protecting anything. I was protecting a belief I had never once tested. Years passed, more than I realized at the time, because when you live inside a pattern, time moves differently. It doesn't feel long, it feels normal. That's how 36 years happen, not through one big decision, through repeated silence, through moments where you choose not to reach out again and again, until distance becomes permanent. I would think about them sometimes, not constantly, just in quiet moments, and every time there was a pull, a small one, something that said I should go back, but it never lasted long, because another thought always followed. It's too late now. That became the second belief, the one that kept everything in place. First, I believed they would reject me. Then I believed I couldn't return, both untested, both powerful, and both wrong. But I didn't know that, because I never gave reality a chance to prove me wrong. Everything that happened inside my own mind, and I followed it completely without ever asking the one question that could have changed everything. Is this actually true? I never asked it, not once. And that's how I lived 36 years away from people who never asked me to leave. At some point, it stopped feeling like a choice. That's the part I didn't notice when it was happening. In the beginning, I could have gone back, I could have called, I could have asked a simple question, and everything might have been different, but I didn't. And the longer I stayed away, the harder it became to imagine returning. Because now, it wasn't just about the original fear, it was about the time that had passed. Time does something to distance. It makes it feel permanent, even when it isn't. I started building a life around that distance, not intentionally, just naturally. You wake up, you go through your day, you adjust to what's in front of you, and slowly, what's missing stops feeling urgent. It becomes background, something you don't think about unless something reminds you, but reminders still came. In small ways, a memory, a place, a date that used to mean something. And every time, there was a moment, a pause, a feeling that I should reach out, that I should break the silence. But that moment never lasted because the same thoughts always returned. What will I say after all this time? What if it's different now? What if I was right all along? And just like that, the moment passed. That's how it works. You don't ignore the truth completely. You just delay it again and again until delay becomes your default. I told myself I needed the right time, the right words, the right moment. But those things don't appear on their own. They don't come looking for you. You either act or you wait. And I kept waiting. Years went by like that. Not fast, not slow, just steadily. I lived my life, did what I needed to do, spoke to people, moved forward. But there was always something incomplete, not loudly, just quietly present, like a sentence that was never finished. Because no matter how far you go, something inside you knows where you started. And I knew I hadn't lost them. I had just stayed away. That's a different kind of loss, because it doesn't come from something breaking. It comes from something never being repaired, and repair requires action, something I kept avoiding. At some point, the belief changed again, not the original one. That had already settled. This was something new, something built on top of it. They've moved on. That thought felt reasonable, even logical, because time had passed, because I had stayed away, because silence had lasted too long. So I accepted it without checking again. That's the pattern. One untested belief leads to another, each one building on the last, each one making it harder to go back. I stopped imagining returning, not because I didn't want to, because it didn't feel possible anymore. And when something feels impossible, you stop trying, even if it isn't actually impossible. I remember one particular day, not special, just clear in my memory. I saw something that reminded me of them. A small thing, something ordinary, but it stayed with me longer than usual. And for the first time in years, I didn't push it away immediately. I sat with it, thought about them, about where they might be, what their lives might look like now. And then something uncomfortable came up, a question I had avoided for decades. What if nothing had changed? What if they were still there, exactly the same? I didn't like that thought, because it challenged everything I had believed. It didn't support my decisions, it questioned them, and questioning is difficult when your life is built on certainty, even if that certainty is false. So I pushed it away, like I always had, returned to the familiar thoughts, the ones that kept everything in place. It's too late. They've moved on. It wouldn't be the same. Those thoughts felt safer because they required nothing from me. No action, no risk, just acceptance. But something had shifted that day. Even if I didn't act on it, even if I buried it again, that question didn't disappear completely. It stayed, quiet, but present. And once a real question enters your mind, it doesn't leave the same way assumptions do. It waits until you're ready to face it, or until something forces you to. And for a long time, nothing forced me. Life continued, quietly, predictably, the same pattern, the same distance, the same beliefs, running in the background, until one day, something small changed. Not outside, inside. I got tired, not physically, mentally, tired of repeating the same thoughts, the same justifications, the same reasons for not acting. And when that kind of tiredness builds up, it does something important. It weakens the belief, not completely, just enough to let something else in. And that's when the thought came back again. Different this time, simpler, clearer. What if you were wrong? I didn't answer it immediately. I couldn't, because answering it meant facing something I had avoided for 36 years. But for the first time, I didn't push it away. I let it stay, and that changed something. Not outside, inside, because doubt had finally entered the belief. And once doubt enters, certainty starts to break, slowly, quietly, the same way everything else had happened. And I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. I had built my entire distance on something I never proved, not once, not in all those years. And that realization didn't fix anything immediately, but it did something more important. It opened the door to a truth I had never given a chance to exist. I sat with that thought for a long time, not minutes, days, maybe longer. What if you were wrong? It didn't come with answers. It didn't tell me what to do. It just stayed there, quietly. And for the first time in years, I didn't cover it with something else. I didn't replace it with "it's too late." I didn't hide behind "they've moved on." I just let it exist. And the more I sat with it, the more everything started to feel uncertain. Not in a bad way, in an honest way. Because certainty had been the thing holding everything together, even though it was built on something untested. Now that certainty was gone, and in its place, there was space for another possibility, a simple one. What if nothing ever broke? That question felt heavier than all the others, because it meant something I wasn't ready to accept, that I hadn't been protecting myself. I had been avoiding something that never existed, that I hadn't lost them. I had just never gone back. That realization didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, small ones, moments where I would stop and think differently, moments where the old thoughts didn't feel as convincing, and slowly, something shifted, not in my life, in my direction. For 36 years, every thought had pushed me away. Now, something was pulling me back, not strongly, just enough to notice. And that's all it takes, a small shift in direction. After years of going the other way, I didn't make a big decision. I didn't plan anything, because I had learned something by then. Waiting for the perfect moment is just another way of avoiding action. So I did something simple, something I should have done years ago. I stopped thinking, and I acted, not dramatically, not all at once, just one step. I reached out. My hand wasn't steady, not because I was afraid of them, because I was facing something I had avoided for most of my life. I didn't know what to say. There was no sentence that could carry 36 years. So I didn't try. I just made the call. That was it. A small action after decades of silence. And when the line connected, everything I had imagined over the years disappeared. No anger, no shock, no rejection. Just a voice, familiar, unchanged in a way I hadn't expected. And in that moment, something became clear. Nothing had happened. All those years, all that distance, all those beliefs, nothing had actually happened. It had all been inside my own mind. I couldn't speak properly at first, not because I didn't have words, because the weight of what I had done finally felt real, not the belief, the consequence. 36 years of something that never needed to exist, and the truth came out in the simplest way. I should have called sooner. That's all I said, not an explanation, not a defense, just the truth. Because after a certain point, explanations don't matter. They don't return time, they don't undo distance, they just describe what happened. And what happened was simple. I believed something that wasn't real, and I lived according to it for most of my life. We didn't solve everything in that moment. That's not how life works. There wasn't a sudden repair, no dramatic reunion, just connection. Something that had always been there, but I had stepped away from, and that was enough, more than enough, because I finally understood something I wish I had understood years ago. The problem was never outside. It was never in them. It was in the belief I never questioned, and that belief decided my life. Not completely, but enough to take 36 years away from something that never needed to be lost. Now, at this age, I don't think about what could have been. That leads nowhere. I think about what is, and what is simple. They were always there. The distance wasn't real, the fear wasn't real, but the consequence was, and that's the part that stays with you, not the thought itself, but what it made you do. If there's anything I understand now, it's this: not every fear is real, but if you believe it without questioning, its consequences become real. I wasn't away from them. I just couldn't step away from a fear that was never true. And that's something I carry now, not with regret that tries to change the past, but with clarity that doesn't let me repeat it, because a single untested belief can cost you a lifetime.